here now. Hopefully everybody can see it. I think everybody should be able to see that there now. So I suppose what we have, obviously, it's Burke Joinery is the main business that we've had, and that's been around, as you've said there, Michael, since 1986. There's been further developments from that in recent years, where we've developed two further business entities. Burke Acoustics, which is obviously specialising in acoustic sound absorption systems, and acoustic doors really being the main two product lines there. And in relation to fire doors, we've started to develop the fire door piece to take it beyond just the product itself in terms of inspection, maintenance, and I suppose just the upkeep of fire doors over the full life cycle of the door itself, which is something that we have felt that's being a bit, I suppose, neglected in the industry, and that they do need to have that type of maintenance and upkeep over their full life cycle. I suppose to take it back a step, I suppose, of where we came from, I suppose obviously my father had set up the business, John Senior, and I suppose his background was that he started off as an apprentice with John Sisk, and he had served his time with John Sisk, and he had actually represented, he had won the national skills contest for carpentry and joinery back in 1977, and actually went on to represent Ireland at the World Skills that followed that. I suppose on the back of that, then he went off himself, and there's actually an interesting newspaper clipping that we've actually had in the factory there for a number of weeks, where he was actually he had set up a business, Premier Furniture and Bonding. This is prior to Burke Joinery, and if you can kind of make out there at the side, there was a lot of bespoke joinery, windows, and a lot of specialist stuff that he had done literally off his own back with a small team. You can see in the photographs there, it was literally a team of 3 people working out of Ballyfermot on the Kylemore Road. And that was really the start of the process. We've always been based in Ballyfermot, and on the back of that business, he established Burke Joinery then obviously in 1986, and we've obviously moved and developed through the years from that. But I suppose just talking about where we are today, I suppose you can see a bit of an image there of the plant as we see it today. So, in terms of the machine stock there, we have over 2.5 million of various different machines, high speed, high press lines, double antenna machines, a lot of high finishing sanding machines, and a triple bed CNC, along with various different spray booths and so on and so forth. Obviously ISO certified facility, and we have, I suppose, there's two, I suppose, streams to the manufacturing plant. We have on one side is, I suppose, the door fabrication, the panel fabrication, and then we also have the other stream being the more traditional joinery of all the various different timber aspects and that we manufacture on any given day. We're very much bespoke in nature, so I suppose every project we take on is different than the next, as they say. The next slide there, you can see just a few shots of the guys, I suppose, working through the processes. You see there on the left hand side, you'll see some of the pre-hung fire door kits that we supply into the market at the moment, and it's a very popular product that we're selling at the moment because we can offer that full certification. The doors come pre-hung, all ironmongery pre-installed and installed as per the fire certification. It cuts down a lot on site with the installation time, and it just means at the end of the day, particularly now with BCAR and so on all the various developments, that you have a fully certified product that's going to tick the boxes particularly from the fire point of view. The next slide I have, I suppose, is a bit of in relation to the factory itself, where we see ourselves going. We have planning permission now at the moment, and we're in the process of developing and extending our facility. From the drawing there at the side, you'll see basically the shaded area is the new extension that we're going to implement. It's just over 6,000 square meters of an extension, and that's going to I suppose we'll have, I suppose, boots on the ground in terms of getting that moving hopefully prior to Christmas, and we hope that there will be a quick enough turnaround in it that come, I suppose, springtime, we should have the facility up and running, and there's a lot of new machinery that we're going to put in there. This is really focused around our acoustic business, which has developed at great speed since the last 5 or 6 years, and we just have to make the next steps in terms of the development in relation to that and what we can supply into the market. Some of the items that we'll be putting in will be a high-speed finishing line. We'll have a new dedicated spray booth, along with a bespoke CNC line, which we're currently in development with. Again, double-sided sanders, and what we also are implementing, which is a dedicated R&D area within that facility, and have a team that will obviously work within that, headed up by myself, to, I suppose, have that constant development of acoustics and acoustic products, and what we can, I suppose, plant seeds with and bring to the market then in years to come. I suppose in terms of the business itself, there's in terms of Burke Joinery, there's 3, I suppose, pillars to what we do, and what we invest a lot of our time in and offer the market is design, manufacture, and the installation piece. When we go to market, and we're obviously dealing with a lot of tier 1 contractors, the likes of John Sisk, the likes of BAM, Collin Construction, and so on. What we offer them is that full service package that we take on that design piece from obviously the CAD drawings and the various detailings that are required. Within that, there's the consultation piece, which is obviously very important when it comes to fire requirements or whatever it may be, say acoustic requirements. The manufacturing piece obviously speaks for itself. We were always traditionally a supply only business, but in recent years we've developed that further. So that manufacturing piece has obviously always been there. The last piece to that, obviously, the installation. Again, in recent years, we've taken those steps to ensure that everything is, we have that full 360, that everything is going to be installed properly. It's in our own control, and I suppose at the end of the day, you can ensure that you're managing the quality as well, to ensure that everything is installed as should be. What I have then, just I suppose, just an example of some of our recent work. That image there just showing again the detail that our guys go to in design. That was a very specialist one-off piece, a reception desk that we have done recently out in One South County for Collin Construction. It took a number of months in development and design, and then obviously a number of months in development in manufacture. The final finished product had a deck-ton finish, which was extremely challenging at the time. It wasn't a material that naturally lends itself to the various different shapes and forms that you see in the images. But I suppose it just gives a kind of a good example of the level of detail from design right the way through to obviously the very elaborate skill required from the joiners in the factory, and then obviously the final installation then on site. This is obviously just again another piece to a very much a bespoke floating meeting pod made from Plex copper. Again, a lot of fine detail involved in that. The next slide there just ties in with the on-site installation. That's actually some live shots of a project we're on there at the moment. Just recently actually handed over the old Boland's Mill, obviously part of the Boland's Quay development. It was a very interesting project where we had over 450 old style casement and sash windows that we had to, I suppose, replicate as best we could from the original design that was found in the building. We were literally handed an old window, crumbled and fallen apart in the coffin box, and we were basically asked, could we take that and develop it, bring it into modern day standards. It was quite a challenge. It involved a lot of work in the UK with BM Trada, a lot of testing. Obviously, as they said back then, windows were just just used as a mechanism to let in light, and that was pretty much it. So we had to make sure that it was watertight. It could pass all the various different the air permeability, all the various different requirements that you would have now from the modern day standard. So that involved a number of months. I think there's about 6 months in development just to get it to a stage that we could actually start the manufacturing process. Each window was individually measured, detailed, and installed to suit the specific opes. So it was quite a challenging but rewarding project, as they say. But that gives a good example, I suppose, of the traditional aspect and the traditional joinery piece that we've always had, from going back to the first slides there of my father when he first started out with his installing windows in houses in Ballyfermot back in 1982. That we still have that skill set, and that being brought through today. It's good to see. The other side of the business, as I spoke and mentioned, I suppose at the start with the acoustics, has been a big thing for us, particularly over the last 5 years. We had a lot of collaboration going back to 2016 in relation to our acoustic doors. I worked myself with UCD and their engineering department, with innovation vouchers through Enterprise Ireland, and we spend a lot of time in developing our own range of acoustic doors, trialing and testing various different acoustic products that we could integrate into our doors, and I suppose to come up with products that, you know, in terms of doors that would tick the requirements in fire performance and also in acoustic performance. Another entity that we had collaborated to was the Irish Composite Research Centre as well at the time. So it was very much a very collaborative approach to how we could, you know, develop the products, how could we manufacture them, and what were the best materials and so on that we could use to bring them to market as quickly as we could. We also on the side of that had and still do today, have a very collaborative relationship with Acoustic Plus in Germany. They're one of the world leaders in acoustic sound absorption systems. It's very much a co-manufacturing process that we have with the guys in Acoustic Plus, which allows us to develop and, I suppose, bring bespoke acoustic systems to the market. We can lean on their acoustic knowledge and ability that they've built up over 20 years, and obviously combining that with our joinery skill set and so on that we have developed too, brings a very interesting you know, product range to not only just the domestic market, but also, you know, the export market as well. And at the moment we've had active sales throughout a number of different countries, particularly this year, where we've been selling it to the likes of Dubai, Australia, and we have, you know, a very healthy, I suppose, sales pipeline in the export piece as well as the domestic market. The next few slides will just show some examples of that work. I suppose there was a project that we had done recently in the last year or so, New Relic, their Dublin headquarters. What you see there, you can see there on the right hand side, the micro perforated panels that we had worked with Acoustic Plus that were supplied into us. We had to put a very, I suppose, bespoke lime wash finish on them. And you see them there in the atrium, actually installed in their final installation there. We also had that unbelievable bespoke AV wall, piece of art, I suppose you'd call it, with the moss panels. Again, showing the wide range of skills, I suppose, that we have when it comes to combining the acoustics and the joinery skill set that we have within our manufacturing plant. And then another example again of one out in WeWork there here in Dublin as well, where we had to combine solid latted timbers that we had to stain and match through, while the guys in Acoustic Plus would have supplied us with the perforated acoustic boards. There would have been a lot of bespoke testing on that to ensure that we achieved the various different acoustic ratings that they were required in the various different areas. The last piece again, just another example of it. I suppose these pictures kind of delve into the bones of the work that the guys would do. Again, that was One South County for Colin Construction. A lot of very fine acoustic work. You're seeing a very unique piece of joinery where we had to combine a very unusual aesthetic, but also ensuring that we could achieve the high performance sound absorption that was required in the space itself. So there was that balancing act that the guys had to maintain throughout. You can see from the veneers as well that they used a kind of a stripped veneer to kind of give it a more natural look of like a solid timber. And then you can see it then in its final installation. It was quite impressive. And I suppose that project, was a great showcase for us as a business, because it combined all our business entities together into one job, in the sense that all the fire doors came through ourselves, the acoustics, every joinery element within the project was handled by ourselves, one single source from design, manufacture, right the way through to installation. Which was a great example of a real showcase of the various skills that we have within the business and what we can do. Again, just another example there of a recent one again with the acoustic panels out in University of Limerick, Glucksman's Library. Again, some really high performing acoustic panels required in the library spaces. Another shot again of real, I suppose, really fine detailed acoustic work for a ceiling panel feature, the kind of a herringbone effect. But that was a really good example of the co-manufacturing process and the collaboration that we have with the guys in Acoustic Plus. Again, the guys very detailed in terms of the work that they had to do within here, and then obviously very detailed in terms of the various different reflective and sound absorption from the various materials that we had to combine. The Burke fire door entity, I suppose, is something that's moved and got a lot of traction over the last 18 months. I suppose traditionally within the industry, when you'd sell a fire door, it would be a kind of a single transaction, and you're paid for your door and it's installed, and after the 12 months defect period, it's kind of gone, and that's it. It goes into the hands of some form of facility management, and that's it. Then you kind of, not that you forget about it, but it's in their care. So I suppose we've seen that there's something there in the market where we do feel in Ireland that people have missed the trick on this, in the sense that a fire door is not just that transaction. A fire door is something that has to be maintained for its full life cycle. So what we have done is to tag on that service piece, that all our doors go out with a QR code. Every single fire door is tagged with a QR code, and it allows anybody, the end client, the facility management company, whatever that may be, to contact us directly for any inspections, maintenance, or whatever those requirements may be, to ensure that the doors are compliant, as I said, for their full life cycle. We've had some great traction with that, obviously, at the moment, and I think even within the last 2 months, we've inspected I think close to about 3,000 doors throughout the country. So it's a system that works not only just for Burke Joinery doors, but it can work for any fire door. And what we do is develop a digital register, and then we can obviously track the doors throughout, and that obviously can involve annual inspections and so on and so forth. So I suppose from a business point of view, it makes a lot of sense too, because you can generate income from a door for a much longer period of time, as opposed to selling it and being paid on the back of the invoice. But I suppose it's an exciting time for us as a business. There's a lot going on between the three entities. We have a very robust, and there's a lot of work coming through in terms of the joinery piece and the acoustics. What we're seeing is a lot of traction in the export market, and we're very much excited about the extension to the facility that we have coming along the tracks, and that we do feel is going to be a game changer for us. And the acoustics.
If I could jump in there,
yeah.
That Bill's going to share with us an illustration of, I suppose, what we're describing as a factory of the future coming from Europe, and that may allow us to have a conversation and in relation to the challenges or changes that the industry has been subject to over the last few years, and maybe consider some of the challenges going forward. But Your move to, if I ask you one question though, in terms of
Yep.
moving into acoustic,
Mm-hmm.
what was it that prompted that for you? You know, in other words, how did you? Where was your eureka moment in that regard?
Yeah,
Or
like
what,
I suppose.
what pushed you there?
Yeah, I suppose we've always been innovative, even going back to the 90s and so on, where we had patented a Class O lacquer system, which my father had sat on and developed himself, which was something that we saw quite a lot of. But I suppose the way we looked at it was with the joinery in particular. Within the marketplace, you'll always, in the domestic market, you'll always see peaks and troughs, periods when you're busy, and then it can tail off again. And I suppose it was really over the period of if you want to call it the last recession of the coming out of the Celtic Tiger years, is that we actively looked at something to say, well, how can we future-proof the business? And where is that potential there? And I suppose as we sit here now today at the moment, between the three entities of the acoustics, the fire door with the service piece, I suppose it just ensures that the company, that the business is in a much, I suppose the group is in a much more robust state than what it would have been before, just traditionally relying on the joinery.
Very good, very good. Listen, that's been fantastic, John, and I'm sure we'll have a few questions now to